Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the be-sup Regulatory Update webinar. We are delighted to have a lot of participants joining today, and thank you for being here. At be-sup, it has become a tradition to provide you twice a year with in-depth updates on regulatory developments and key files at both the European and Belgian levels. Before we dive in, let me share some housekeeping notes to ensure a smooth session. You can submit your questions via the Q&A at any time. We will address them at the end of the presentation during the dedicated Q&A session. If additional questions come up afterwards, please feel free to email them to us. We will make sure that you receive an answer. And finally, the presentation slides and the recording of today's webinar will be shared with you afterwards. Let me briefly introduce myself for today's session. My name is Valerie Verkammen and I'm the Director General of be-sup. And I'm joined today by my esteemed colleague Ulrike van den Houten, our Director of Communications and Regulatory Affairs, and by our intern Indy. She will also assist you if you have technical issues. Together, we will guide you through this webinar, and we hope you will find it valuable and insightful. This is the agenda of today. We will start with the EU topics and go on with the Belgian topics. After both parts, we will address your questions during the Q&A session. And now let us begin. I will hand over to Ulrike for the first topic of the European part, the harmonization of maximum levels for nutrients. Ulrike, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Valerie, and hello, everyone. And indeed, our first important topic is the harmonization of the maximum levels of vitamins and minerals. And we will have a look at the situation and also what are the latest developments. But first of all, let's summarize the previous steps very quickly. So as you know, the process of harmonization is based on the Article 5 of the Food Supplements Directive, which calls for harmonized rules on the maximum levels of vitamins and minerals across the European Union. But after all these years, we still don't have harmonized levels, as you know. So a task force was set up involving several member states, including Belgium. The European Food Safety Authority, EFSA, had been mandated to reassess tolerable upper intake levels, the ULs, for vitamins and minerals to ensure consumer safety. And this work had been finished since August of last year. And then several meetings were scheduled throughout 24 to discuss the scientific assessments and the regulatory approach. But despite these meetings, no concrete draft proposal had been shared. And then suddenly, in the beginning of 25, the information leaked that a draft proposal had been shared with the member states by the European Commission, and it presented also the proposed methodology and groundwork for the harmonized levels, and it gave concrete maximum level values for vitamins and minerals. Feedback from the member states was asked about this proposal. And we, as be-sup and EHPM, we received this information, even if there was a big lack of transparency in the process, because in fact, the member states had been asked by the European Commission not to engage with the stakeholders at this stage. But as I said, it was leaked, so we were informed on this. And we will come back on that process, but first, just to show you the table with the work completed by EFSA last year that was done to redetermine some upper levels for several vitamins and minerals. And as you can see here on the slide, EFSA has published opinions on copper, on selenium, vitamin B6, vitamin D, folic acid, manganese, vitamin A, iron, and vitamin E. For iron, just a little remark, there was no sufficient data to define a safe level of long-term iron consumption, so a maximum intake level was not established, and instead safe intake levels were defined for various target populations. And you can consult, if you would like to, all the EFSA opinions by clicking on the links. And here under the table, you have a link to go to a kind of summary report of all these opinions. Okay, and then in the meantime, of course, EHPM, our European Association, had also been working very hard on this top priority file. They worked on a model that was based on sound scientific methodology, based on upper levels also, on reference intakes and intake of vitamins and minerals from food from important national dietary surveys from European member states. And in this model, vitamins and minerals were divided in 3 groups, as you see here in the table, depending on the risk. So there was group 1 where there is no risk, and then no MPLs had been proposed. Group 2, that's the group with low risks. There MPLs had been proposed, and then there's a third group where this is a group of minerals where a higher risk is identified for particular groups, and so MPLs have also been proposed. And just, if we talk about MPLs, that's the maximum permitted level of vitamin or mineral in a food supplement. So in fact, it's the highest intake determined to be safe for consumers for a long-term daily intake from food supplements. And in the HPM model, to complete this, there were 2 levels that were determined, adults and children from 4 till 10 years. You will have the link if you want to go to the EHPM model that was published in 21. You can click here on the image or the link here on top. And this model has been used for advocacy work. It has been presented to DG Sante and the Directorate General for Health and Food Safety of the European Commission, and also to some national authorities like Belgium, Greece, Ireland, Italy, Netherlands, and Portugal. And then beginning of this year, also a big and constructive work has been done to align this model, the HPM model, and also the FSE model. FSE is the other European Association for Food Supplements. And the 2 European associations have worked together to talk with a unified voice within the European industry, because this is very important for this file. Now about the proposals and the efforts of our industry. At the beginning, some of you might know because we communicated a lot about this, but the first proposal that was on the table was very restrictive. It was even more restrictive than the BFR model in Germany, which presented very low maxima. Advocacy actions have been undertaken by EHPM, by be-sup, by our sister associations across the EU, as I told you, with the EHPM model and letters that have been sent to members of the European Parliament to express also our concerns and requests. And those included that there were no safety concerns to justify a rush decision. Also, the problem is that there was a lack of, and there is still a lack of transparency of the process. We have well-functioning national approaches, and that should be taken into account, because if no problems have been raised in member states after years of applying certain maximum levels, why not take that into account? And we also expressed the need to conduct an impact assessment. And we highlighted that consumers will be impacted negatively by a too restrictive approach. And as a result of all these efforts, a second, somewhat improved proposal had been leaked. It was not really published. It was the leaked proposal. It also showed some better maximum quantities for some nutrients, but still low and problematic values for quite some others. And this is, in fact, the methodology that had been used, that is being used for this model with the values that had leaked. It was already presented at a Euroforum conference on food supplements in November 24. And this is the methodology that is considered for setting the maximum levels. And this is the formula that is being used. That's R equals UL minus P95. UL, as you know, is the upper level, which is the maximum safe intake level as determined by EFSA. The P95 value refers to the 95th percentile nutrient intake from food. So it reflects the intake of people with the highest dietary consumption. So there's already a safety margin that is built in here. And then R, the result, that's the remaining value. That's what's left after subtracting the food intake from the upper level. And the remainder is then split equally between food supplements and fortified foods. So it's a 50-50 split, also something that is problematic and not in line with reality. And the result, yes, low values for several key nutrients, including, as you see here on the slide, zinc, iron, magnesium, calcium, vitamin D, and beta-carotene. And especially when we compare to the current allowed maximum levels in Belgium under the Royal Decree, and also with the already more balanced proposal, as in the common model of EHPM and FSE, as I told you. And also, it's worrying to see that for certain minerals, like iron, for instance, the value is even 0 for children. They don't propose anything, so you wouldn't be able to make formulas or to commercialize food supplements for children with iron because the level is 0, and that completely denies special needs of, for instance, adolescent girls. And that's just one example, of course. There are others. So we expressed, of course, our concerns about this draft proposal. And we use this in communication and advocacy actions. First of all, the equal but unrealistic 50-50 splits between the fortified foods and the food supplements as a starting point. As I said, it doesn't reflect the distribution numbers declared by the member states based on available studies. There are studies, and it's not in line with these studies. Secondly, it assumes that individuals consistently consume the maximum intake from all possible sources. There's food, fortified foods, and supplements, and this over the entire lifespan. And this is really an unseen approach and an unrealistic assumption that doesn't reflect actual dietary patterns. So there are too many safety margins built in. And then the impact of the worst case scenario on vulnerable groups, such as pregnant women, the elderly, or people with specific medical needs, that has not been considered. Also, EFSA's upper intake levels are being treated as absolute limits without considering the already built-in safety margins or real-world variations in dietary intake. And so this approach may lead to really unnecessary low limits. Another major issue is the assumption that intake levels suitable for children are also sufficient for adults. So age-specific needs are being ignored here. And in fact, the maximum levels set for children aged 3 to 10 years old are being applied also to adolescents up to 18 years old, despite their higher nutritional needs during growth and development. And this is the case, although EFSA itself recognizes adolescents in the determination of the upper levels. There are different age groups that are being determined, and the adolescents are a separate group with distinct requirements, but this is not reflected in the proposal, so that's not very logical. And then finally, the proposal also fails to properly assess the quality, the robustness, and the representativeness of the underlying data across the European Union. For instance, the use of the P95 intake data from the country with the highest reported intakes is used, rather than using an average across the European member states. So this really skews the data and may lead to overly cautious limits. So all this said, the next steps in this harmonization file. This year in 25, it became very, very clear that it was very important for all the industry associations, the key European industry associations, to speak together with one strong voice. And EHPM aligned with Food Drinks Europe, with Specialized Nutrition Europe, with Food Supplements Europe, and AESGP, that's the Association of the European Self-Care Industry, and they worked closely together to present a united front. They have had 2 joint meetings this year, and a common letter had also been drafted and sent to the European Commission, and meetings took place to discuss the industry concerns. So a lot of advocacy actions this year. Also, EHPM and FSE, they are conducting together an economic impact assessment to show how the proposed limits could affect the sector and the access to supplements. And this is really important because the Commission had already confirmed that they would not do a formal impact assessment. So we had no other choice with EHPM to carry it out ourselves with FSE. And then recently, the latest news, till last week, was that the European Commission confirmed that the second model is still on the table, but too premature to discuss. And there were no future meetings planned between the European Commission and the member states, and thus the stakeholder consultation was also not yet to be expected. And this was confirmed in October at the 50th anniversary of EHPM at the European Parliament. The Commissioner Varelli was there and he spoke and he confirmed that the priorities of the Commission had changed and that this file was not top priority. And also our Federal Public Services for Health had confirmed this. So we understood that there was a kind of a standstill. But since last week, there are suddenly new developments. And in fact, we had been informed that Germany is exerting a big pressure on this file. Germany has placed, in fact, the file on the agenda of the Agri-Fish Council meeting. That's the Council of the European Union Agriculture Ministers. And it will take place this Thursday, 11 December, so in 2 days. And in their letter, they call for urgent progress, requesting that the dossier would be finalized in 26. And they formally asked the support of other member states to co-sign and increase like that the political pressure. And last week, we already found out that Belgium intended to support the German position, alongside with Estonia, Slovenia, Luxembourg, Spain, and France, although France expressed some comments. And so these developments pushed us to act rapidly. So at European level, EHPM has taken the lead with the industry coalition, supported by be-sup and the other European associations, of course, and they drafted a joint industry letter co-signed by all the major European associations, as you can see on this slide here. And this joint position strongly calls for a solid scientific and proportionate risk assessment. That's something that's missing from the current proposal. We also request again for a robust economic, healthcare and market impact analysis. And also very important, we insist that the industry should be properly consulted because that is also lacking since the beginning of this file. So in summary, the industry is indeed in favor of harmonization, but it must be done in a correct and a transparent way. And then on Belgian level, we also took some advocacy actions. be-sup took the lead, and this initiative from us was co-signed by FEVIA. And that is always a good thing to put some more pressure on files. And letters have been sent to the ministers Clarenval, Van den Broeke, as well as to the Director General Mieke Walravens of the FPS Health. And we did that to ensure that all key political and administrative stakeholders are fully informed of our sector's concerns. And so finally, you can find here on the slide also the joint industry statement. So we will, of course, keep our members updated on any developments following this Thursday Agrifish Council meeting, during which this initiative will be voted. And then we hope that we will know more about it later on. And then I give the words to Valerie for the next topic.
Thank you, Ulrike. Let me take the hands over. Yeah, I will try to guide you through the state of play of the different Article 8 files. Maybe first some advice. When you see Article 8, this should really trigger or raise a kind of flag, and to keep in mind, especially when you are thinking of developing new products. So what exactly is Article 8? Article 8 is in the regulation EU 9025/2006, and essentially it's a safety procedure that can be triggered either by a member state itself or by the European Commission. Once Article 8 is activated, there are three possible regulatory outcomes for an ingredient. It can be banned, meaning it is moved to Part A of Annex 3 of Regulation 1925. It can be restricted, for example, through the establishment of maximum levels. Then it falls under Part B of Annex 3 of the regulation, or the ingredient can be placed under scrutiny, which is Part C of Annex 3. In that case, industry has 24 months to submit scientific data to demonstrate that the ingredient is safe. After this period of 24 months, the European Commission must take a final decision within the 4 years, choosing between authorization, restriction, or a ban. With this framework in mind, let's take a closer look at the current Article 8 files and what they can mean for you. Let's start with the hydroxyanthracene derivatives. I will call them the HADs during my presentation. This is maybe one of the most complex Article 8 cases, and it has been ongoing since 2021. As you know, the European Commission adopted a ban for the substances that you can see in the upper part of these slides in 2021, and placed several substances under scrutiny. However, what happened then? There was a judgment of the European Court of Justice in the court case of, in our common court case of Synadiet and be-sup. And there were also other cases from companies like Ortiz Forever Living and Aboca. And this stopped, in fact, the process for HADs. We won the case, but the European Commission appealed, which means that the annulment has currently been suspended. In practice, this means that the ban technically remains into force until the Court of Justice will issue a final judgment. The Commission informed EHPM that she will not take new regulatory measures before the appeals end, but member states may still restrict products based on EFSA's advice. So for companies, HADs remain a quite complex category and vigilance is essential. Next, the monacolins. Monacolins in red yeast rice. The current maximum level, the restriction up to 3 milligrams per day, has been in place since June 2022, along with mandatory warning statements on the label. At the same time, monacolins were placed under scrutiny for 24 months, so the industry could submit safety data. Within EHPM, there was a large project to contribute to the EFSA scrutiny period. It was a collaboration with the University of Bologna and 12 companies in 3 countries, of which be-sup members participated to the project. Unfortunately, even it was a good, high-quality study. The European Commission, the EFSA did not take it into consideration and it was rejected. The European Commission is now expected to take a final decision before June 2026. At this stage, we know that the European Commission its intention is to ban the monacolins in red yeast rice, but she would be open to grant a transitional period. So again, monacolins are high-risk Article 8 files that will probably be banned end of 2026, but with a transition period. Let's go further with green tea extracts containing EGCG. These extracts have been restricted since 2022 with a maximum intake of 800 milligrams of EGCG and also several additional requirements for the label, for warning statements on the label. And on the same time, they have also been put under scrutiny. However, no safety data were submitted during the scrutiny period. As a result, the European Commission would like to ban green tea. EHPM contacted the European Commission to raise the fact that a ban would really be totally disproportionate and also legally challengeable. And besides, banning EGCG would be in contradiction with the authorization, the recent novel food authorization, where the level of 300 milligrams of EGCG has been estimated as safe. So the Commission would have to take a decision before the end of 2026. We are following this file closely, also together with EHPM and our colleagues within EHPM. Moving on to alpha-lipoic acid. The Article 8 procedure was initiated by Denmark following EFSA's advice of June 2021. This was not really a general risk problem, but EFSA concluded that no safe dose could be established due to extremely rare cases of insulin autoimmune syndrome. But it's a very rare genetic condition that is extremely rare in the European population. The European Commission first proposed to place alpha-lipoic acids in Part A of the annex of the regulation. So they wanted to ban it for use in food supplements. However, more recent indications suggest a shift towards placing alpha lipoic acid under scrutiny. This would give our industry 24 months to provide safety data. This has not been confirmed yet, but it shows certainly that the Commission is more and more reluctant and, I would say, hesitating before taking regulatory measures. She wants really to be sure that she will have the support of a majority of member states to avoid problems. Next case, sweet and bitter fennel. In this case, Article 8 was triggered by Germany, and EFSA's assessment has now been postponed to the 31st of January 2026. So we would have more information about fennel and end of January. At this stage, we do not yet know which direction EFSA will take, but it's also an ingredient to keep on your radar. Let's move on to botanicals containing hydroxycitric acid, for example, Garcinia gumiguta. Article 8 has been initiated by Spain, and EFSA's assessment has also been postponed. The next deadline is expected to be the 31st of March 2026. We will keep you posted, of course. Finally, berberine. In the Article 8 files, this Article 8 procedure was initiated by France, and in this file, the EFSA assessment is still ongoing, and it has been moved to the 30th of April 2026. So berberine has also attracted significant attention in recent years as regarding potential safety concerns. And yeah, we really give you the advice also to follow up on a regular basis our regulatory updates. Let's move over to the heads of agencies reports, the HOA reports. The heads of agencies report is an initiative from the heads of safety agency of the European member states. For Belgium, however, it's the Ministry of Health, SPF Santé Publique, Volksgezondheid, that is following this file, and not the Food Safety Agency, AFSCA FAVV. And the purpose of the heads of agencies report was to assess a broad range of substances used in food supplements, looking both at their safety profile and their regulatory status across Europe. In the first phase, the 12 substances were identified as priority ingredients. You can see the list on your screen. And as you will see, it includes several well-known botanicals like curcuma, Hypericum perforatum, maca, and also Withania somnifera, ashwagandha. So what is the state of play at this moment? The European Commission has not yet triggered Article 8 for these substances. However, it has asked EFSA to carry out a preliminary assessment. And EFSA, in its turn, requested clarification from the German and Dutch authorities. And this exchange is still ongoing. Although no regulatory action has been launched yet, the inclusion of these botanicals in the HOA reports is a strong signal. So for companies, it's important to be cautious with these ingredients, especially if you plan new products developments, to monitor their status closely in the coming months, and so follow the newsletters and the information session of be-sup, I would advise. Yeah, we are following this up closely, and we will also inform you of every development in this file. Over to Ulrike for the state of play of the PPWR working group.
Yes, we wanted to give you an update on that also. And here also first a brief recap of the context and the objectives of the packaging and packaging waste regulation. So it was proposed by the European Commission in November 22, and it is set to replace the current, the previous directive 9462. Unlike a directive, it's a regulation, so it's legally binding in all member states without a need for national transposition. So it applies directly across the European Union. And it introduces responsibility across the entire life cycle of packaging, from design and production to disposal and recycling. And very important, it applies to all types of packaging and all packaging waste, regardless of material or sector. And the main goal is to make packaging more sustainable, reduce waste, and support circular economy. The official text of the PPWR was published in January the 22nd in the European Journal, so you have the link on the slide. It entered into force 20 days after publication, and from there it will become applicable as of the 12th of August 26, 18 months later. Important to understand also is that there are some derogations for this regulation, for example, for the packaging of medicinal products, contact-sensitive packaging like infant formula, medical devices, and foods for special medical purposes, as well as dangerous goods. But unfortunately, no derogation was granted for food supplements, despite the significant efforts from EHPM supported by be-sup. And then the purpose, yes, of the PPWR is to move to packaging, the packaging sector towards circularity and climate neutrality by 2050 in different steps, of course. And the key objectives, you can see them here. It is preventing and reducing packaging waste by encouraging reuse and refill systems. Also ensuring all packaging on the EU market is recyclable in an economically viable way by 2030. So that will begin very quickly. Increase the use of recycled plastics in packaging in a safe way, and also reducing reliance on virgin materials and promoting a circular economy. And these are just some of the key measures. It's not a complete list, of course, but some of the measures are, they concern recyclability requirements. They are about incorporation of recycled materials, especially in plastics. There are also rules for the reduction of excess packaging, and this includes eliminating unnecessary layers, for instance, reducing empty space in packagings, particularly also in e-commerce. Another major pillar is the expansion of reusable systems. That means that systems will have to be built for collection and cleaning and reuse. So big work to come. The regulation will also introduce digital product passports, which will provide detailed information about each type of packaging. And lastly, labeling standards will be harmonized across Europe. Packaging will need clear labels to show how to dispose it and what's it made of, so to make sorting and recycling much easier for everyone. The major targets, well, first we still need the publication of the design for recycling criteria. That will be, those will be published normally in January 28th. Also, the performance grades for packaging will be published in these design for recycling guidelines. So at the moment, there are still a lot of uncertainties, and that makes the preparation towards this PPWR very difficult, in fact. What concerns our sector also a lot is the date, the target by 2030 about the minimum recycled content. Because packagings will need a minimum of recycled content depending of whether they contain PET or not. So these are some rules. And you can also see it here on the figure that we received from Pack for Food. And also another important issue is the recyclability compliance. All packaging on the European market must meet recyclability performance grades. And this will be at least grade C, so 70% of recyclability. And by 2038, that will only be grade A or B, so that means minimum 80%. So you see also for 2030 the grades here in the figure. And then another important date, because this is on national level, by 2035, full-scale recyclability will be required, and that means across the entire European Union. If you want more details on this and on all the other targets and deadlines, you can find a very interesting infographic via this link, and also more information that we received from Pack for Food, because they did a presentation in our working group. So members of be-sup have access to that presentation on my be-sup. But before we go further, there is a really important change that will be applicable very soon. That's the first thing that is directly from the date of applicability of this regulation, and it concerns PFAS. You all know PFAS, because I think we hear about it in the media every few days. There is PFAS everywhere, but there is also PFAS in our packagings sometimes. So, and there will be extra rules for it. That will be, as I said, from the 12th of August 26. There are new limits for food contact packagings that will come into force, and that's under Article 5 of the PPWR. And from that date, food contact packaging placed on the EU market must not exceed any of these thresholds. And that is for in any individual kind of PFAS, that is 25 micrograms per kilogram. For the sum of all PFAS, it is 250 micrograms per kilogram. And then there's also a limit for total fluorine, including polymeric PFAS, and that is 50 milligram per kilogram. But what does that mean concretely for you, for the food supplement companies? So essentially, all the primary packaging used for supplements must be PFAS-free by design by the 12th of August 26. And for bottles and jars, it means ensuring that the coatings, the mouth release agents, and the barrier layers contain no PFAS. For blisters, both the forming film and the lidding, particularly coatings and primers, must be verified as PFAS-free. And for sachets, sticks, and pouches, there's historically a high risk for PFAS, so companies will need to transition to PFAS-free laminates and coatings. Another important aspect is the documentation. Companies should request explicit PFAS compliance statements from their packaging suppliers and retain this information in their technical dossiers. Additional caution is required for paper and board packaging, and that is especially for products sold in Denmark, because their PFAS-treated paper and board food contact materials are already banned. And finally, it will also be crucial to monitor the upcoming universal PFAS restriction under REACH. So that's a larger frame, in fact. And this broader restriction is expected to further limit PFAS use across all materials, but the exact scope and timelines are still under development. So this about PFAS is really important to be aware of, because it is really the first major change set by the PPWR. And then to come back to the industry challenges for our sector, the first and big challenge our sector faces is, of course, the lack of derogation for food supplements. We are still analyzing the possibility of still requesting a derogation for food supplements in blisters. We didn't achieve this in the past, but we are still continuing lobbying for this. But in the meantime, we have to continue working towards full packaging compliance, PPWR packaging compliance by 2030, because it will be there very soon. And if we do nothing in the meantime, that can be really problematic. And we have some specific issues for our industry, and that's for plastic jars and lids. There are already PPWR compliant materials that exist and that are available, but the transition might come with some financial and operational burdens. And on top of that, operators will need to carry out new stability testing to guarantee the shelf life. For blister packaging, the problem is bigger because all existing materials are not PPWR compliant. The materials will have to change in monomaterials to be recyclable. And the good news is that developments are ongoing, but by changing to these materials, it will require drastic investments, changes to production lines also, and full validation processes. And then besides these most commonly used packaging formats, there are also the pouches, sachets, and sticks. There seem to be possibilities of compliant materials. We have to look a little bit deeper into that, but there will also be the same challenges as for those mentioned above. And then there's also transportation packaging, but this is not very sector specific, and there are solutions available. And so from a financial perspective, the impact is significant. Companies will face higher costs related to sourcing new compliant materials, upgrading machinery, facing increased operational complexity, and also the rigorous validation procedures. So it's really a fundamental shift that will affect the entire value chain. And to tackle most important challenges and to help our members, we created a working group at the beginning of this year. It is a true working group, as the word says. It's not just a discussion forum, but it is really a collaborative space where we actively share best practices, and the members show a willingness to test solutions in practice. We had several meetings since the beginning of this year. We've worked on stakeholder mapping and possible lobbying actions, and we are also very happy to share that we have now a partnership with Pack4Food. Pack4Food is an independent innovation network focused on food packaging, and they support companies in developing sustainable, innovative, and user-friendly packaging solutions. And they do this through applied research, training, networking activities, and also tailored guidance. And these partnerships broadens our network. And it also gives be-sup easier access to updates on the PPWR. So it is a really valuable partnership for us. We also established contact on European level with AMS Europe, that's the Advanced Packaging Materials and Solutions Association, and they are actively involved in the CEN committee. And to better understand the situation of our members, we conducted a survey We received 41 responses, which shows a high engagement of our members, and it clearly reflects the level of concerns within the sector. But at the same time, we also saw that there is still a lack of concrete action despite this broad awareness, and this may be due to uncertainty that still exists about final legislation, of course, because as I told you, the design for recycling criteria still have to be published in the beginning of 28. Also might be a lack of technical knowledge or support, and also, yeah, a lot of companies still have the perception that the deadlines are still far away, but time flies as we know, so it goes faster than we think, and we have to prepare. Also, the survey showed us that testing and innovation efforts remain limited. Even among the active respondents, only a handful already tested new materials, and shelf life tests with new materials have not been finished yet, but some members have them ongoing. And finally, the survey also confirmed the presence of the financial and technical barriers, especially for the blisters. But to conclude with some positive news, we have also held meetings. During these working group meetings. We invited several blister suppliers, and the overall message is positive. At the beginning of this year, we didn't think that the developments were very positive. Not a lot of PPR compliant materials existed, but we can say now that we see that the packaging suppliers are very busy developing new materials and have already launched new PPWR compliant blister packaging materials. So we see that the industry is moving and working on possible solutions. But of course, these materials will still require thorough testing before they can be adopted at scale. So we will continue to work on this within our working group and keep you informed of that. And if anyone is interested to join the working group, you can always contact us, of course. And then I will continue with a topic that is facing increasing pressure in Belgium and across Europe, and that's the influencer marketing and the protection of minors online. There are two recent European initiatives on this topic. The first one is the initiative of the European Parliament that recently adopted a non-legislative report on the protection of minors online. And this report aims to shape the political direction for future Commission actions. The objective of the report is to urge the European Commission to rapidly deliver ambitious and pragmatic guidelines aligned with the Digital Services Act to ensure stronger safeguards for minors in the online environment. Why do we mention this? Because this report did not mention food supplements, but during the process, several amendments, and you can see them here on the slide, the numbers of the amendments, raised serious concerns for our sector. They proposed to ban the direct or indirect promotion of food supplements by influencers, and even worse, by grouping our products together with gambling and so-called harmful products such as tobacco, vapes, and unhealthy foods. And for example, here you have the amendment 422, which explicitly listed unhealthy food, unhealthy beverages, food supplements, diets. So they list food supplements between all the other unhealthy stuff. This amendment was signed by a broad group of MEPs, including Hilde Woutmans from Belgium, which we found rather strange because she supported us in the past in the harmonization file. Yeah, really worrying, the inclusion of food supplements between all these other harmful products in these amendments. So in response, EHPM, in collaboration with other associations and supported by be-sup, took immediate action. They did a coordinated advocacy action, and we successfully demonstrated that food supplements cannot be equated with harmful or high-risk products, of course, and that such wording would create unjustified stigma and regulatory confusion. And so as a result, the final compromise amendment no longer includes any reference to food supplements. So this is really a very positive outcome, and it reflects the effectiveness of our joint intervention. Of course, this still has to be voted, so it will be continued. But at least there is no mention of food supplements anymore at the moment. And then a second European initiative is the preparation of the Digital Fairness Act by the European Commission. This is a new initiative designed to complement existing consumer and digital regulation by targeting unfair or manipulative practices in the digital environment. And the objective is to ensure fairness and transparency in digital and influencer marketing, and to enhance, of course, consumer protection across all the digital platforms. And although here also food supplements are not explicitly mentioned in the DFA itself, the Commission's public questionnaire raised a significant concern, because in the questions, food supplements were there also grouped together with gambling, tobacco, vapes, ultra-processed foods, and other so-called harmful products. And so again, here, this categorization is problematic and risks to create negative associations that are not scientifically justified or aligned with the European legislation. So there was a public consultation. It closed on the 24th of October, and the Commission is expected to publish a draft legislative proposal by the third quarter of 26. And in response to this mentioning of food supplements in the questionnaire between all these other harmful products, EHPM, supported by be-sup and the other associations, has here again taken action. They responded to the survey, they contributed also to the public consultation, and they developed a position paper. And also, to show our engagement and act proactively, we are preparing with EHPM guidelines on influencer practices. And to do so, a new task force was created within EHPM. It was created very recently in October of this year, and the aim is to proactively shape responsible communication practices in our sector, and to provide clarity for both the companies and the influencers. In the meantime, the task force has already drafted a proposal for influencer guidelines. It's the Netherlands and Belgium that are taking the lead in that. And so these proposal for influencer guidelines are intended for use by companies and also by influencers themselves, as I said. And a second meeting is scheduled for the 8th of January. In 26, so very soon, with the aim to finalize this draft. And if it is finished on time, we intend to present the guidelines at our General Assembly on 17 March 26, but that will still have to be confirmed. The objective of the guidelines is clear. It's to promote best practices that ensure responsible, transparent, and truthful advertising by influencers in relation to food supplements, and this is essential for maintaining consumers' trusts. And importantly, these guidelines are not meant, of course, to replace national rules or legislative requirements, but instead they aim to support national self-regulatory initiatives and to help companies to focus on practical and concrete elements elements that are very relevant for influencer marketing in the food supplement sector. So the main goal, of course, is to help all the members. And the outcome will be a guidance document that will provide the companies and the influencers with practical, actionable advice on how to promote food supplements in a legal, responsible, honest, and transparent way. And so this is at European level, and then also at Belgian level, several developments. Yes, there are several developments for influencer marketing and young people's exposure to digital content. First of all, there is the Superior Health Council that has published last week a report on the effects of screens and social media on children and adolescents. And in their report, they made a press release also, and you have the link to the report here, of course. They don't propose a ban under a certain age, like 13 years old, for instance. Experts remain divided on it, but a majority does not support a complete ban. And instead, the report proposes a graduated and a balanced approach, an approach that aims to reduce risk while they also recognize the potential benefits of digital technologies. And they call for action in 4 main areas, and that's prevention and education, support and early detection, regulation, and research and governance. So that's for the Superior Health Council. And then also very recently, it was in October of this year, an influencer certificate has been launched by the Influencer Marketing Alliance. And this is a certification available in Dutch and in French, of course, that consists of an e-learning module based on Belgian advertising rules, including self-regulatory principles. And influencers can do this e-learning, and they must obtain a minimum score of 70% to receive the certificate, which is then valid for 1 year. So they will have to do it again every year to receive their certificates. And this is an initiative that is part of the wider European ethics program, for which you also have the link in the slides. And 9 countries are already participating in this program, and Belgium also makes part of this. And the main goal is that in the different countries, to be sure that influencers apply all necessary regulations, that if you work with an influencer that has obtained its certificates, then you are reassured that they know all the rules. Then also important documents to give you on this topic. It dates of 22, but Belgium has updated in 22 their general influencer marketing guidelines. They are accessible via the JEP website. JEP, that is the Belgian Jury for Ethical Advertising Practices. It's available, as you see on the slide, in Dutch and in French. And these guidelines are also interesting for companies. They are more about the commercial relationship between an influencer and a company, and about clear disclosure of publicity on social media by influencers. And finally, be-sup is now also in contact with both the Influencer Marketing Alliance and also the Belgian Board for Advertising. And this Belgian Board for Advertising, it includes the JEP. In fact, it's part of this board. And we will look together with them whether it would be useful to work also on a specific code, advertising code for food supplements, because there is a lot of pressure also on national level, and we want to show our engagement and the willingness of our sector, and we want to ensure that our sector stays aligned with national ethical and regulatory developments. So an important topic that with still a lot of work, but we will keep you informed about the evolution, of course. And then we will pass on the Belgian topics.
Thank you, Ulrike. Let's move to the Belgian topics. With the new royal decree that of 14th of December 2024 that replaces the existing royal decree on nutrients, botanicals, and other substances. This is really an important development for our industry, and I would like to give you a clear overview of what has changed and why it matters. The royal decree was published in December last year and entered into force in February 2025. Unfortunately, the text introduces several significant departures from the European framework, and these changes create major challenges for a lot of companies operating in Belgium and for our be-sup members. Let me briefly summarize what's new and what are the most problematic points. The Ministry of Health removed the wording concentrated source from the official definition, the official European definition for food supplements, despite of the fact that the concentrated source is really the essence of what a food supplement is. It might seem minor, but it is certainly not. It means that Belgium is no longer aligned with the harmonized European definition, which raises really legal questions and creates also uncertainties about what can or cannot be considered as a food supplement on the Belgian market. The second point is a very important one. The Ministry of Health has granted itself the right to refuse notification numbers. A notification number should be a notification, the word says itself, and not an authorization procedure. However, now the royal decree allows the authority to the Ministry of Health to refuse notification numbers, which means that the procedure is increasingly resembling a marketing authorization. And this is contrary to the European Directive on Food Supplements 2002-46 directive. The Ministry of Health stated that Belgium notification numbers should not be used in the context of mutual recognition in other member states. This position also raises serious concerns as it undermines the principle of free movement of goods, one of the cornerstones, I would say, of the internal markets. Next, two new obligations have been introduced. Food supplements for children must now be approved by the Superior Health Council, Conseil Supérieur de la Santé, Hoge Gezondheidsraad, and essential oils in capsules must be approved by the Plant Advisory Committee. These two procedures add not only complexity, but also costs, and they delay, of course, your notification procedures. And again, this moves the notification system closer to a pre-market authorization model. We asked a legal analysis to our lawyer, and this shows really that the royal decree contains several infringements of the European law. These include barriers to free movement of goods, disproportionate administrative burdens, and also unilateral changes to harmonized concepts like the definition. And for this reason, be-sup has decided to take action, like many of you know. Um, we have mandated our lawyers to file an annulment request before the Council of State. Um, we we were supported by Fevia for the fortified foods, and this is of course a significant financial commitment for be-sup, but it was really essential. It was crucial to protect and to defend our members' interests. The procedure is now ongoing. Um, we we believe we can expect an opinion from the auditor in the first half of 2026, and the annulment could take place in the second half of next year. Until the Council of State rules, the royal decree remains in force, which means companies must now comply with a new decree in the meantime, even if we do not agree, of course, with its contents. Um, this royal decree has practical and strategic consequences for your businesses, and it's really crucial for our members to understand those new requirements and to anticipate their impact on your product portfolio. Um, we will continue to defend your interests, and we will of course keep you informed as soon as we will have news about the state of play of our court cases. Another important file, the use of German on labels. So let's look at it. As you may know, it's a legal obligation that is not new, since it dates the law on the use of languages dates from 24th of January 1977. And all mandatory label, this law says that all mandatory label information must be provided at least in the language of the region where the product is sold. This means Dutch in Flanders, French in Wallonia, French and Dutch in Brussels, and crucially, German when products are sold in the German-speaking community, which includes the 9 municipalities that you see on the screen. However, for years, there was a gap in the legislation due to an error during the transposition of the European FIC legislation, which made enforcement impossible. And that's why even if you did not use German and you sold in the German-speaking community, you haven't been fined by AFSCA FAWW. But this loophole was closed in September 2022, and the language requirement entered fully into force. Thanks to joint advocacy by FEVIA, be-sup, and Comeus, the Federation of the Retailers, the supermarkets in Belgium, we were able to obtain a 2-year tolerance period. So it's not a transition period, but it means that controls were possible, and we were informed by be-sup members that controls did happen, but no fines were issued for now. This period would end on the 31st of December 2025. Within our working group, we have been discussing some practical solutions. Like, for example, you see 3 solutions on the screen. Well, in fact, you see only 2 solutions on the screen. Peel-off labels are accepted by the Ministry of Health, but they are quite expensive, and also they raise questions about sustainability. And we are not even sure if they would be PPWR compliant. And you have also to mention that the German text is inside the peel-off label. QR codes are not a legal accepted solutions. We receive many questions of members if they can use QR codes to link to the German information, but unfortunately, the legal services of Minister Clarenval have confirmed that QR codes are not currently accepted as a legal solution. Another solution could be working with an outer packaging containing all the mandatory information on the outer packaging. And some members even are speaking of not selling in the 9 cities of the German-speaking part of Belgium anymore. So officially, what we know is that the tolerance period will end on the 31st of December 2025. And so as from the 1st of January 2026, controls will be possible by FAVV AFSCA. If you are selling in the German-speaking community, the nine municipalities, your label will have to mention German. Of course, recalls, this will not lead to a recall because no food safety, it's not a food safety issue, but withdrawals would be possible. So if you are, if FAVV AFSCA would contact you after New Year, show your goodwill. And what I mean is provide them with your new labels containing German information. There is however, there is a positive development. In our last contacts, Minister Clarenval has indicated that he may extend the tolerance period once again. So this is really encouraging, but we are still waiting for the official confirmation. As soon as we receive it, we will inform you immediately, of course.
Okay, we will continue with an update on botanicals in Belgium. Okay, as you probably know from our previous communications, there's a new draft royal decree on botanicals. We had been informed as be-sup before the TRIS notification that was done the 1st of July of this year. So as we were informed before, we discussed this draft proposal already in our working group, and in May 25, comments and questions that were raised within our working group were formally transmitted to the Plant Commission. And since then, the Plant Commission has already provided some responses on those questions. So as I said, then the draft royal decree was notified under the TRIS procedure in July. The standstill period ended on the 2nd of October. And it's important to note that no stakeholder contributions were submitted during this phase. The notification can be consulted online for full details and the draft text via this link here, of course. And yeah, there were no stakeholder contributions, but as I said, be-sup already reacted before that via the plant, the Plant Advisory Commission, in fact. We also made in be-sup a comparison of the old and new Annex 3, the list, the plant list, focusing in particular on changes to authorized plant parts, conditions of use, and other technical requirements. So for members, you can find these documents with this comparison in my be-sup. You have the links here, but you need, of course, your password to access it. And then there was also a specific issue raised by Sinadiet and one of its members on Ligusticum striatum. They request for a reversal of the new condition, and the new condition is absence of alkaloids that is asked, and the request is to turn it back into monitoring alkaloids. This request has been transferred also by be-sup to the Plant Commission, and at the meeting of the 14th of October, it was placed on the agenda and it was confirmed to be further discussed in one of their working groups. So we will know more about it in the next meetings. So yes, we also want to ask you once again if you have thoroughly checked the proposed changes relating to the plants used in your products. It is really important to do so to avoid problems later. So if you have any questions or comments on that, don't hesitate to contact us. And then we will continue with another topics that is the one of the indication of price per unit for food supplements. Okay, so the indication of price per unit is a legal obligation, and it was highlighted during an inspection at one of our be-sup members. The Belgian Ministry of Economy conducted a control of the company's website, and they saw an infringement of the law, and the reason was that the website didn't display the price per kilogram for the food supplements on the website. And this is in fact required by the Royal Decree of 30 June 1996. Especially Article 6 that states that any seller who offers products for sale to the consumer must, in addition to the sale price, indicate the unit price. And this applies to both sales in shops and online sales to consumers. And the decree also specifies that this unit price must be expressed in kilograms or liters. So the core issue here is that food supplements are legally classified as food, and there is currently no derogation for the food supplements category under this decree. But it doesn't make sense because, as you know, food supplement typically weighs might be between 200 milligrams and 1 gram, 25 is mentioned here. That's approximately. So indicating a price per kilo results in misleading and disproportionate figures, and those figures do not help the consumer to make informed choices. To give you an example, a box of 1990 capsules of 450 milligram each costs 40 euros, and then when you calculate the price per kilo, you arrive at almost 1,000 euros. So that's completely absurd. So in practice, the sector mostly applies a price per box or a price per intake unit, like per capsule or per tablet, because this is also more transparent and practical for the consumers, of course. And then with the support of Comeos, and that's the Belgian Federation for Commerce and Services, and they represent also the supermarkets, we decided to formally submit a request for derogation to the ministers Clarinval and Beenders. And the legal basis for this derogation lies in Article 1 of the Royal Decree, which allows alternative units if commonly used in the market, but you have to ask a derogation, and our proposed alternative is the price per intake unit instead of the price per kilogram. And then following this request, we had a meeting that was held on 6 November of this year with Cabinet Clarinval, Beenders, and the FPS Economy. And during that meeting, the FPS Economy, they acknowledged that the rule is outdated and difficult to apply. That controls also on unit pricing started only recently, and that's why in the past this issue had not been raised. So it is really a new issue that is raised since recently. And the decree of 96 should also be aligned with the FIC regulation. They informed us that an internal note from FPS Economy dating from 2024 already proposed revising this decree. And both cabinets expressed understanding and were open to adapting this new law. So there is a legal feasibility. A derogation is legally possible after consultation with the Consumer Council. And there is also a precedent because for spices, the price is indicated per 100 grams instead of per kilogram. But there are some political constraints. The Beenders cabinet confirmed that the topic is not part of the current government agreement, and that means that changes will not happen in the very short term, or not within 1 year, as we understood. So in the meantime, FPS Economy and both cabinets will coordinate internally on the best approach to follow. And be-sup therefore requested a temporary tolerance during the transition phase, because in the meantime, if the law cannot be changed, we proposed a tolerance in case of controls, specifically that no fines would be issued while this derogation is under review. And similar tolerances have been granted in other regulatory contexts, as in the file for the German language labeling, as Valerie just explained you. So the next steps are to continue, of course, our dialogue with the cabinets and the FPS Economy to follow up on our demands, because the demand has been done, but we are waiting for response. Waiting also for the formal review process, following the advice from the Consumer Council, and then maintain, of course, our collaboration with Comeos to ensure a unified sector advocacy and to have a higher pressure. Okay, and then over to you, Valerie.
Yes, thank you, Ulrike. We are going now to go a little bit more in detail about the MOSH and MOA regulation. Over the past months, the Commission has been working on regulation for MOA, mineral oils. And you see the proposals on the screen. She proposes for MOA in food supplements 10 milligrams per kilogram as from the 1st of January 2027, and it goes even lower to 5 milligram per kilogram from the 1st of January 2030. To put this in perspective, those levels are very low compared to what we currently see in many ingredients. And our concern is really that our members are not aware yet. And we discussed this file also within EHPM, and we are following the file and the development of the legislation, but many members are not aware of the fact that this is going to be a huge problem, especially for ingredients that are mechanically harvested, such as certain plant oils and botanicals. We know that often the MOA, the mineral oil levels, are far above those thresholds. This is where the sector faces a major challenge. Most oils on the market today simply cannot meet the proposed limits, at least not without significant changes in agricultural or processing practices. So what we are trying to do is really to convince the European Commission to provide higher levels. But therefore, we need proofs of, and we need your certificates, your analysis certificates, to be able to prove that the proposed levels, in fact, are too low to be workable. What does this mean in practice for your sourcing and quality management? First of all, we would like to give you the advice when you source ingredients that are mechanically harvested, that you really need to make sure that they are not contaminated with MOA. And this means from now on, you should, well, it's quite simple. You should systematically ask your ingredient suppliers for a certificate of analysis that demonstrates the absence of MOA, or at least the lowest possible detectable levels. If your supplier cannot supply or does not want to supply your such documentation, it's a clear risk indicator. Secondly, and this is also why EHPM and be-sup are collecting data from the sector, we really need concrete analytical results, like I said, to demonstrate that the levels that European Commission is proposing are simply too low for certain categories of ingredients. Without data, it will not be possible to argue for adjusted, more realistic levels. So it's also a call for data that I am sending out to you today. Your contribution, your analysis, your certificates, your test results are really crucial to build a strong file, an evidence-based position that reflects the reality of our sector. Um, Yeah, that's it, what I wanted to say. So, ask proofs to your ingredients providers, and if you have results, send them to us. We will treat them really confidentially, like we always do with your data. But it's so important if we want to really get rid of some levels that has showed that they are not feasible for our industry. Over to you again, Ulrike.
Okay, thank you. I think we arrive at the one of the last topics, and that's because we wanted to give you some clarification on the tolerances on net weight after we consulted the Belgian metrology department at the Ministry of Economy. So, in fact, in the recent weeks, members have raised some questions about weight inspections carried out by the FPS Economy and the Metrology Department, with different interpretations across the regions, Flanders versus Wallonia, especially regarding whether legal tolerances apply only when the E-mark is used. And be-sup, because it wasn't very clear, we contacted the Ministry's Metrology Department for an official clarification. So first of all, the FPS Economy confirmed that the Royal Decree of 28 December 1979, which transposes the Directive 76/211 into Belgian law, continues to apply without exception. And this decree sets the legal framework for average content requirements, for maximum permitted negative errors, and for statistical batch control. And its scopes covers all pre-packed goods between 5 grams and 5 milliliters and 10 kilogram or 10 liters, which includes virtually all food supplements. So the FPS Economy confirmed that Belgium makes no distinction between pre-packages with or without the E-mark. The tolerances of Article 4 of the Royal Decree apply in all cases. And so you have in the table here, you have the tolerances of this Article 4 of the Royal Decree. And as a result, the permitted negative deviations apply to all fixed quantity pre-packages, regardless of whether the E-mark appears on the label or not. So what is the role then of the E-mark, you might ask? Well, the E-mark is optional and it does not create or modify the tolerances, but it is still valuable to formally declare compliance with the directive, to facilitate free movement of goods within the EU, and to reduce additional controls for exports to other member states. So in fact, it serves rather as a harmonization tool and not as a determinant of legal tolerances. And then another information that's not on the slide, but also important to mention because we received this week also questions about it, is the net weight, is it really mandatory on the packaging? And we also received confirmation that it is. Um, so despite the discussions lately, we can confirm it because we received the official confirmation of the FPS economy. And in fact, yeah, in some communications, some companies understood that net quantity is not mandatory because in the FIC regulation it is stated that indicating the net quantity is not mandatory for foods that are normally sold by the piece, provided that the number of pieces can be clearly seen and easily counted from the outside, or if this is not the case, is indicated on the labeling. So you might understand there, okay, food supplements, capsules, tablets, it's sold by piece, so it might fall under that interpretation, but it is not the case. FPS Economy confirmed us that, in fact, you have to look at the Royal Decree of 26 January 1976 concerning certain modalities of indicating quantity, and this decree specifies, among other things, which food products may legally be sold by the piece and which are even exempt from any quantity indication, but food supplements are not included in this decrease list of products that may be sold by piece. So the indication of net weight is therefore mandatory. So that's also clear now. Okay, back to you, Valerie.
Thank you, Ulrike. Yeah, just one slide for those of you who do not know what be-sup is doing. Well, we remain very active on many other topics, not only the one that we presented for you today. You can see it in the word cloud on the screen. It gives you an impression of the breadth of the files that we are monitoring and working on. Oh yeah, maybe before going over to the Q&A session, most of you that have an account in FoodSup for the notification will have received, I believe it was on Friday evening, quite late, an email from the authorities, from the Volksgezondheid, SPF Santé, with some important announcements that I wanted also to show to you today. So there is a payment interruption, or there will be a payment interruption because there is a change of bank accounts. There is also a new website. If you are looking for, we have been looking for some documents because the FOT SPF changed its website, and everything stands on a new place apparently, so it's not easy to find, and we will have to get used to it. And also very important for your notifications, there will be or there has been today around noon, there has been a change to the FoodSup URL, so the link that you use to access FoodSup for your notification files. So if you have not received that communication from the ministry, you will find the links also in this in our presentation of today. So let's get over to the Q&A session. We will go and check both the Q&A and the chats, starting with the chats. Okay. Okay. I see a question about the new Annex 3 for botanicals. So it's a proposal, so you will not find it on the website of the authorities, but it was in our communication about the TRIS notification. So we will share it with you. will share you the link, Faye, to make it accessible for you. And let's look at the Q&A. First, about the tethered caps. The tethered caps are part of the SUP legislation. And SUP legislation, single-use plastic, is only for liquids. So I'm not aware of any obligation of tethered caps for non-liquids food supplements. What do you think? What do you think, Ulrike?
Not heard of that neither.
Okay.
No. We can take a look into it, but doesn't ring a bell.
Okay. So tethered caps was really part of the SUP, the single-use plastic legislation, and it was only for liquids, for liquid food supplements. Yeah, and then a question about, well, a Belgium-only measure, I would say, a question addressed by Sophie. Yes, in Belgium still refuses food supplements in the form of chewing gum without really a legal basis, I must say. But the problem, if you notify a food supplement in the form of a chewing gum, it is you do not obtain a notification number. Belgium is the only country in Europe to do so, and within EHPM, we are discussing this file to find an argumentation to challenge that. Let's go to the other questions. Yeah, question to clarify about Article A and hydroxy anthracene derivatives. If we win the court case, that means if in the appeal procedure we win the court case, this would in fact cancel the ban, indeed, the ban on HADs. Let's go further. Two questions. Two questions about Article 8 deadlines. I believe that you mean the fact that the EFSA has received more time to finalize its safety reports. Does that mean a decision will be taken after that deadline? Well, if you look to the other Article 8 files, for example, the one on monacolines, the EFSA report dates from 2018. Some of you were already following those files. And if you see that, well, monacolines at this moment, okay, there is a restriction to less than 3 milligrams and the necessity to have safety warnings on the packaging, but it's still on the market. And we are speaking about a ban by the end of 2026. So you see that there is a lot of time between the EFSA safety assessment, the safety study, and the regulatory measure taken by the European Commission. So it's not really a short time frame, I would say. And for Moshe and Moa, no, the limits are lower. At this moment, when I was speaking about the future limits of 10 milligrams per kilogram and 5 milligrams per kilogram in the future, the limits that are now applied by FAVV are limits that have been decided at the SCOPAF level, and we are speaking of limits of 0.5 up to 2 milligrams per kilo, which is clearly, I mean, it's crazy and it's not feasible. And that's why you see a lot of recalls by FAVV, AFSCA in many products. Um, yeah, Kathleen, you will have to be more precise in your question because I do not know warning on labels only for adults. I do not know about which file you are speaking. And the decision for the court case on HADs is expected end of 2026. So 1 year, one more year, patience. Other questions in the Q&A?
Yeah, I also see that Bert asked a question if there is a EU regulation for microplastics in food supplements. Well, there is a EU regulation that aims at restricting microplastics in different products, but it's not specifically for food supplements. At my knowledge, it's more for products like cosmetics, detergents, cleaning agents, so things where microplastics are used intentionally and not. Yeah, in my knowledge, not for food supplements, but this can be checked maybe with some of our external partners who have more knowledge about this.
And then there is also one question, but I think this is a confusion between what we discussed about the price per kilo, etc. And you, Stephanie is speaking about it is not mandatory to state the recommended retail price for consumers on the website of food supplements. But that's another file, I believe, because isn't that, Ulrike, the change that it is not authorized anymore to mention the recommended retail price for consumers after the action
Yeah.
of APB.
Yeah, it was an issue with APB that APB communicated a recommended retail price to the pharmacists, and they stopped doing that because yeah, there were some issues with doing that because the pharmacist itself has to determine its margin, and you cannot push a certain retail price. So that's more on that part, but. A retailer can put on his website, or the pharmacist can decide which retail price he puts on his e-commerce website, and any retailer can do it. So that is no problem. Of course,
Okay,
you have to have your selling price.
good. I think that we addressed all questions. Ulrike, indeed, do you see other questions that we did not address?
Don't see any others. I don't know, Kathleen. No, she didn't.
She didn't react on my, yeah.
Okay, then no, I don't think there's anything open.
Okay. Well, in that case, just some information about our current events, our coming events. This is the calendar. This is the calendar for 2026. We have a lot of well, interesting events at the program, so do not hesitate to attend them. The save the date for our General Assembly. Very important. We expect 150 people there. The authorities will be there, representatives of the academic world. The business days, the Nutrifon business days, you know that as a be-sup member, you have an advantage, a price decrease as a be-sup member, so do not hesitate to contact us to ask the code. And the details of our team. Today, we were with Ulrike, with myself, Valerie, and with Indy, our intern. So, oh, there are new messages. Okay. Okay.
No, it's okay.
No,
Kathleen will
it's
contact us
okay.
later with her
Okay.
question.
Thank you very much. Then I believe we can end here. I hope that you had an interesting session. And on behalf of the entire be-sup team, I would like to thank you for your participation and for your continued appreciation and trust of our work. And we wish you a wonderful end of the year and warm seasons. Greetings, take care, Enjoy the holidays, and we hope to see you again at one of our next be-sup events. Thank you very much. Bye bye.
Bye.